So we continue in Sefer Ha-Aggadah, the midrashim that are related to the story of Gan Eden, and now to the Ha-Aggadah, to the eating from the fruit of the tree of knowledge. So this is on page 16 in volume 1. So it speaks about this pasuk that the serpent was shrewd, and now he's trying to entice the woman. So this midrash that we're going to read is based on a contradiction in the psukim. God tells Adam, "Do not eat from the fruit of Ha-Aggadah, of the tree of knowledge." But then, when the woman retells the prohibition to the serpent, which she says, "Amar Elohim lo tochelu mimenu velo tige'u bo pen temutun." So we cannot eat from the tree or touch the tree. So why the additional prohibition of touching? God didn't say do not touch the tree. So the pshat of the pasuk, if we just look at the pasuk, I think it's very simple. We when we take something upon ourselves, we usually try to keep further away from it to make sure that we are not tempted, right? For example, if I start a low-carb diet, and I know that I'm not supposed to eat cakes, and there are two ways that I could walk home. One passes by a wonderful pastry shop, and the other one, you can bypass it. I will not be tempted. I will keep away from it. Now that it is forbidden, what I took upon myself is not to eat, not to pass by the store. But I know that if I walk there, you know what will happen. This is because the smell is tempting. Airlines, by the way, they know it very well. Now on domestic flights, you don't get food, right? We used to provide something, now they don't get food. But American Airlines, for example, in the middle of the flight, they don't just come in, and suggest food. They just bake in the back the pastry, and everybody's tempted. Like all of a sudden, you feel hungry. You wouldn't feel hungry without that. So the same thing probably is what happened here. God told men, which means men and women together, like we said yesterday, we're created equal on an equal basis. So God tells both of them, don't eat from the fruit. And when the woman talks to the serpent, she says, we're not supposed to even touch it. But this is what she took upon herself. But the Midrash sees it differently. In Avodah Rabbi Natan, the Midrash says the following. The Midrash says that when Adam went to talk to his wife, he was the one commanded by God. The woman was not included, according to the Midrash. So he goes to talk to his wife, and he says, listen, God says don't eat from the fruit, and don't even touch the tree. Why did he add this prohibition? Because he said, Nashim da'atan kala. Women are lightheaded. And therefore, she wouldn't be able to keep up with this prohibition, so I'd rather put a fence for her, so she wouldn't transgress it. Right? Now, and it backfired. As we'll see in the midrash we're going to read. Why did it backfire? Because when the woman told the serpent that we're not supposed to touch the tree, הלך הנחש ונגע באילן וידיו ורגליו והרתיעו עד שנשרו פירותיו לארץ. So the serpent, this of course is all a metaphor, not to be taken literally, but the serpent pushes the tree to the point where the fruits fall to the ground, and it makes it. The midrash makes it even more dramatic. The tree screams, "Don't touch me! I should not be touched by the hands of wicked entities." But anyway, I touched the tree, and I didn't die. So you could also touch it, and nothing will happen. So the serpent pushed the woman on the tree, and she touched it, and he said, you see, nothing happened. A combination of two midrashim, really. One, that the serpent was the one touching it. One, that it pushed the woman. But what is the message of both midrashim, when you put them together, is this. If we would have followed the pshat interpretation of the pasuk, God speaks to both men and women and tells them not to eat it, but Hava, the woman, took upon herself an additional step, but eventually couldn't keep up with it. Fine. But according to the Midrash, it was an additional fence put there by Adam right? Adam said, let me make sure that my wife doesn't break the law. So I will not tell her the truth. I'll tell her that you're not supposed to touch the tree. So is this an acceptable behavior or not? Depends on, what context probably. I know that many men do this kind of offense when they have to go to a wedding, for example, or an event. They know the event starts at 7 o'clock. They tell their wives it starts at 5. This way, they'll be there at 8. They're only 1 hour late, and not 3 hours late. But I do that. But after a while, my wife knows already. So tell me exactly what is the real time. Like it doesn't work for long. But what Adam did here in the Midrash is actually the way the rabbis say it. It's criticism on other rabbis. It's an inner conflict in the rabbinical world. You had two schools of thought. We're talking about 2,000 years ago. Some rabbis said we have to erect fences and make more prohibitions in order to prevent people from breaching the law. And let us add more and more prohibitions. Other rabbis said you shouldn't make so many prohibitions because now you make the Torah impossible to keep. It's too difficult. But of course they were outnumbered, so they said at least if you make all these decrees, let people know what is the original prohibition and what is the additional fence, so they know that if they breach the fence, they still did not break the prohibition. And it will save them from two things. One, from feeling guilty. Second, from saying, if I'm already a sinner, if I already did that, let me go ahead and enjoy myself. Or anyway, I'm not part of the, unfortunately, God forbid, of the Jewish world. So, for example, when you think about meat and dairy, right? Observant people know that most traditions go with either 3 or 6 hours between dairy and meat. Some people, the German Jews and Dutch Jews, keep 1 hour between dairy and meat. The original statement in the Talmud was actually not to eat dairy and meat in the same meal. But once you finish your meal and you say Birkat Hamazon, whether it was a dairy or meat meal, then you could eat the other element. Meaning you could, according to the Talmud, you could finish the meat meal, say Birkat Hamazon, now the Sauda is over, the meal is over, you can have ice cream, but it wasn't very common back then. People just didn't have dairy desserts after the meal. Dessert was usually fruit or wine. So, but we added fences. It's okay if people know what is the original prohibition of the Torah, which is really not to eat meat and milk which were cooked together, and know also that they took upon themselves to create fences. But they must be informed. People must be informed. What is the norm? What is the original halacha, and what was added onto it? And unfortunately, this is not done. Several times I ran into people, we're talking about halacha, say, but the halacha says this and that. The Torah says this and that. So the Torah doesn't say that. Let's look into the Torah and see where it's written. One year before Pesach, it so happened it was before Pesach, so I tuned into the the religious radio channel, which you have in New York, and a rabbi was giving a lecture on the types of cheese that are considered aged cheeses and an old cheese that is hard to digest, and therefore, after you eat cheese, you have to wait 6 hours before eating meat. Right? And he goes in detail into he was an expert on all the Italian names and Dutch names for cheeses, names that I never heard. I thought most of the names I thought were opera singers. They turned out to be cheese, like Havarti and whatever it was. They all. So for half an hour, 45 minutes, just I don't know why they had a long drive in New York traffic, and I had to listen to something funny. So he's explaining all these cheeses and how long they stay in the factory and if they're aged or not. At the end, the disclaimer. What if I would have, finished like halfway, and I didn't listen to the end of the class. I happened to know the end. At the end, he says, the practice of waiting after cheese is only kept by certain Jews of Dutch origin and this origin, meaning not Sephardim do not have it at all, and even among Ashkenazim, most people don't do it. So you're talking about 45 minutes, an hour of something that really has no basis anywhere, but you make people feel like this is the halacha. So this is going back to the Midrash. What happened here? How did it backfire? According to the Midrash, God tells Adam, don't eat from the fruit. Should have gone to Hava, to the woman. I'm saying the woman because she's not called Hava until after the fact. So he goes to the woman and he says, God said, don't eat, don't touch. So now she thinks that eating and touching have the same status. So she will be punished for touching the same as she's punished for eating. So now that the serpent manipulated her to touch it, or it touched it itself, the serpent can say, you see, the whole thing is not valid. You could now throw the whole thing away. This is the criticism of the rabbis who made the original Midrash, saying be careful not to mesh all levels of halakha together, so people don't know what comes from the Torah, what comes from the rabbi, what comes from non-legal sources, and then they think if one part is not valid, the other part is not valid as well, and I can throw everything away. This was their cautionary tale.
Before you continue,
yes.
The Torah says, "Lo tevashel gedi b'chalav."
Yes.
What happens if you have a piece of cow?
It's a good point.
With the milk of goat.
Right. That's a good point. So the Karaites,
Gruyere.
With Gruyere, right? Gruyere is this famous French painter.
Roquefort.
Right. So that's a good point. So the Karaites who rejected the oral tradition said really that the prohibition is only if you cook a kid in its mother's milk, in its own mother's milk. But if you do it with other animals, a cow in a goat's milk or vice versa, or not the direct mother, it's okay. In any case, it wasn't a problem for them because many Karaites became vegetarians because they believed that you're not supposed to eat meat after the destruction at all. So they didn't really in practice eat meat and dairy. But when we go to the rabbinical interpretation, there was an oral tradition that said that Lo tevashel gedi b'chalev imo, do not cook a kid in its mother's milk, is only an example, but it refers to all mammals, all kosher mammals. So any kosher animal cooked in the milk of another kosher animal would fall under this prohibition. If one cooks non-kosher animal in any other in milk, it's forbidden because of non-kosher meat, but it's not basar b'halav. And it doesn't apply to chicken. The rabbis recognized it doesn't apply to chicken or to fowl in general, and that is an additional offense or additional prohibition that we took upon ourselves. And up until the 3rd century, actually, the Talmud says in Masechet Shabbat, in about במקומו של רבי אליעזר, במקומו של רבי יוסי הגלילי, היו אוכלים עוף בחלב. At the time at the place of Rabbi Yosei Glili, it was common to eat chicken cooked or fowl cooked with milk. Now, the question is really why the Torah phrased it in that ambiguous manner. Why wouldn't the Torah say Lo tevashel v'chol bakar vatzon, for example, v'chol ben bakar vatzon, Lo tevashel b'halav, and say that would be a general prohibition that will leave. Okay. It leaves no room for mistake. There are different answers. My personal understanding is this: it seems like the original plan of God for humanity was not to eat meat. We're really not engineered, even from an evolutionary point of view, to be carnivores, even to digest milk. We're supposed to be vegetarians. But after the flood, God gave permission to humanity to eat meat. Rabbi Avraham Yitzchak Cohen Cook explains that to ask people not to eat meat was to ask them to be too merciful, to go above and beyond our violent nature. So, telling them to be vegetarians sort of suppress this violent nature, and it bursts out against other humans. So God says, you know what? It's better if you eat some animal meat and be more compassionate towards people. But the Torah says, the Torah doesn't want people to go crazy with eating meat. Definitely not the way it is today in America, where people have meat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I mean, if they could have a beef burger milkshake, that everything is mixed together, probably have it all also. So one of the ways the Torah sends this subtle message is, Lo tevashel gedi b'chalev imo. It's like saying, remember, I gave you permission to eat meat, but still it's a certain act of cruelty. So don't add to it by taking meat and cooking it in the milk, which is the mother's milk, which is supposed to give it life. So to remind us to be more refined and gentle in our approach to animals and the way we consume it.